Good afternoon. My name is Mikhail Shneyder, and my official title is Chief Executive Officer. I've spent my early career in a laser-focused pursuit of that title. However, the practical usefulness of it proved to be questionable at best. The one undeniable utility of that title is for certain, however. It is for the federal government to know whom to escort to prison should something go awfully awry in a highly regulated industry like higher education. That said, I describe my actual role as dreamer in chief. And I've had the same dream for as long as I can remember myself. Yeah, that's back in the day when I was sporting my finest bouffant. All right, on to some heavier stuff. Although I spent much of my life living in fear, shame, doubt, anger, and hatred, somewhere deep inside, I have always dreamed of peace. As a Jewish kid, being relentlessly bullied in my birthland, I dreamed of peace. When a boy on a kindergarten playground uttered an anti-Semitic slur and split the skin above my right eye with a rock, I cried and I dreamed of peace. When another boy in 5th grade knocked my head with a backpack full of textbooks, I suffered a concussion and I dreamed of peace. Ever since, based on someone else's misguided beliefs, the first inklings of shame of being in my own skin first appeared, I dreamed of peace. Growing up under a shadow of World War II, woven through the horror stories told by my grandparents and unbearably heart-wrenching lessons in history, I could not fathom how people could be so cruel to others. And I dreamed of peace. Every day of my childhood, looking into the blue sky and waiting for a dark silhouette of an atomic bomb to appear. I was terrified, and I dreamed of peace. Narrowly surviving a drug overdose in my mid-20s, and as a result, being crushed by a debilitating panic disorder. For years, I could not take a breath, and I dreamed of peace. And then, when seeking solace at a house of worship, and as a gay man, being labeled an abomination by a faith leader, I hated myself. But I dreamed of peace. In every brief glimpse of light, when not swallowed by the all-consuming darkness, I dreamed, and I dreamed, and I dreamed. And so I spent the first few decades of my life searching for peace in many different places. I dreamt of its existence in some parallel universe or timeline. I sought to see it in the eyes of other people. That search proved to be fruitless until, by a stroke of sheer luck, I met a life coach who called himself a humanist. From him, I learned that, like most people, I was searching for light and grace and peace in all the wrong places. He guided me on a long journey of healing and learning to breathe again, learning to move, learning to love, to forgive, to find and accept my self-worth. He also invited me to learn the courage that is needed to live in a space beyond fear and all of its derivatives, like shame, like doubt, like hatred. In the years that followed, I understood what Miyamoto Musashi meant when he said, everything is within. Everything exists. I knew then that peace was finally within reach. And then one day, like the brightest and most beautiful light, peace came flooding in, but not from somewhere out there in the universe, but from right here, right from the axis of my heart. And there, in the warm embrace of absolute clarity, I suddenly recognized the meaning of a lesson most of us had in a general psychology course. You know, those 20 minutes you've spent immersed into Abraham Maslow pyramid of human needs. Yeah. Looking at myself with the newly acquired sight, I finally grasped the universality of the needs Maslow described. Each of us is motivated innately to fulfill our deficiency needs. Everything that is required for basic survival and then multidimensional wellness. But even more than that, whether we realize it or not, we all are driven by the inaudible call to strive for our highest potential, our highest capability, the need to self-actualize or to become actually what one is potentially. And beyond that, to witness our own light and unlock peace contained within. Peace is a foundational common denominator in all human aspirations. Think about it. If given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make a wish that would undoubtedly come true, what would you wish for? Health? Money? Success? But why? You see, human condition pushes us into a never-ending pursuit of achievement, masking accomplishments as the goal. It prevents us from seeing that all of them are just the means to an end, the means for finding lightness, finding contentment, finding peace. That epiphany led me to become a pupil of positive psychology. So allow me to give you a quick refresher on those 20 minutes you might have snoozed through in class. You see, self-actualizing people share several common characteristics, like a profound acceptance of themselves and others, a rational and efficient perception of reality, and a strong sense of purpose, far beyond personal gain. They are autonomous, creative, and concerned truly with the well-being of everybody. They cherish life and revel in the frequent moments of awe and wonder. As amazing as it sounds, though, researchers estimate that only 1% to 2% of human population get to reach that level of development within their lifetimes. What's more, at the time of Maslow's death in the early 1970s, no scalable mechanism for accelerating human development and elevation toward actualizing existed. Now, imagine just for a moment a world where everybody would be as lucky as I was to work with a humanistic life coach. And where, as the result, the self-actualizing statistic was actually flipped. That world would be undoubtedly kinder, more accepting, and more forgiving than the one that we collectively inhabit today. In that enlightened world, instead of being constantly bullied, a boy from an ethnic minority would be welcomed into the community at large. And in that enlightened world, instead of being outcast in his hour of need, a young gay man would be ushered in with open arms. And in that enlightened world, instead of being swayed by a madman into an unbridled hatred of others, people would see and embrace their interconnectedness and would be able to recognize each other in the contours of somebody else's face. In that enlightened world, peace would be universal. And isn't that world is what you dream about? Well, I certainly do. Realizing, however, that my dreams alone have never changed a thing. And believing, perhaps naively, that I had the power to improve the world. I set out to uncover a scalable mechanism capable of accelerating human development. All systems known to me at the time failed. Governmental system failed. Faith systems failed. Charitable systems failed. Fortunately, I did not have to look too far. While exploring his late career writings, I stumbled into a hypothesis Dr. Maslow dubbed enlightened management. He theorized that businesses had both the means and the incentive, as well as the moral imperative, to cultivate better humanity. Proper management of the work lives of human beings, he wrote, can improve them and can improve the world. At the time, however, I didn't know how this one barely middle class immigrant nurse would go about operationalizing his theory. I was certain, however, of my unbreakable commitment to make it a reality. And so I continued learning. In my MBA program at Berkeley Haas, among myriad other concepts, I learned about the profit motive. That motive that drives investment and innovation. All around me, billions of dollars were poured into startups creating uber cool new technologies. But who, in their right mind, would invest in building peace? And what return could they possibly expect from it? Obviously, I had to find a hook. The means by which to generate resources for my human elevation engine. As luck would have it, following a career advice at Haas, I found myself in the nursing education arena, quickly realizing that after decades-old stagnation, it was primed for innovation and better outcomes. I was convinced that by revolutionizing and changing, transforming all of the systems within it, existing models in nursing education, we would lead to revolutionizing its impact and create unprecedented geographic, demographic, and socioeconomic access to education for nurses to meet the already existing demand. To achieve it, however, I needed to amass a vast community of creative, dedicated, and like-hearted collaborators. So armed with the synthesis of my learnings in human motivation, organizational development, finance, and entrepreneurship, I conceived a practical mechanism through which the realization of both my means and the end was possible. I call it the human motive business framework. It is quite simple, really, with the business core designed to develop and elevate people along the deficiency and growth needs continua toward becoming better versions of themselves. Consequently, this individual growth hastens self-regulation, innovation, and collaboration within the employee community, with each participant's increasing capability to meaningfully contribute to our collective impact. And that impact is what generates plentiful means for both the reinvestment into the human core and the return to actual investors. This cycle constantly moves forward in concentrical iterations, thus becoming self-sustaining and scalable engine of human and business growth. The rest, as they say, is history. In 2009, I met an investor who was intrigued with my ideas. And in 2014, we started Nightingale College. I'm not sure whether we've changed the world just yet. What I know for sure is that the human motive framework is working in its intended way. And today, our organization truly feels like an elevated, high-impact community. We are diverse. We choose to be kind to each other. We make mistakes, but forgiveness and growth flow freely. And as a result, peace flourishes. We're almost 1,200 strong today and serve nearly 10,000 learners with thousands of graduates from across the United States and its territories. Year after year, our collaborators recognize the organization as a great place to work, with turnover rates much lower than the industry averages. And as for profit, even with the significant investments into the human core, and really because of it, there's no shortage of profit. And today, our enterprise is valued at more than 100 times the initial financial outlay. As for me, I continue to relish peace. And I hope that soon the business community at large recognizes the value of the human motive framework and implements similar models through and through until one day we all live in peace. Before then, however, I am truly fulfilled knowing that even if one other person self-actualizes and finds peace as a result of my labor of passion and love, that's the only scale that truly matters. It is a human scale. It is the scale of one. It is the scale of you. Thank you all for being here today, and may peace be with you.